Contrast uncut, yeah, you know that's us. Where we only speak the real and the real rock with us. Where we motivate the people and politic on success. Oh no, we ain't DJ Khaled, but they swearing we the best. Contrast uncut, contrast uncut, contrast uncut, contrast uncut.
What's happening? It's Contrast Uncut, Season 4. This is my spotlight episode. It's the voice edition. You know, I want to give a big shout out to Uncle Snoop's Army and Bobby D Presents. I appreciate you, brothers. It's your host, Zylo, aka DJ Juan Dollars Like I Won Some Money. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we got an incredibly dope special guest. He's from Newport, Arkansas, and calls home where I call home, Bakersfield, California. He's a pastor, singer, songwriter, and dedicated husband and father. His voice is a soulful river of lyrics and passion from a place of love and humility. He can uplift your spirit by pressing play on anything you can find of this brother. You have seen this brother turn an elimination at American Idol into an elevation on NBC's The Voice, where the style of his bringing definitely delivered to the crowd across America and the judges' attention from the blind challenge. It quickly became a media success and made him a front runner of the show. Shortly thereafter, as we know, Team Blake Shelton picked him up and gave us a whole bunch of motivation and inspiration during this pandemic. He was the talk of the nation. And if you don't know who I got on the show by now, it's all good. We got all episode to chop it up with the soulful pastor himself. Jim Ranger, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. How are you? Good to be here, man.
Oh, it's an honor. It's an honor. Life be busy sometimes, and then how we can create a time space and then do the interview in Bakersfield, it's a blessing.
It is, man. I love this place, and I love the whole idea of spotlighting Bakersfield and what it has to offer, man. It's a beautiful city.
Yes. I feel like, I spent a lot of time season 4, season 3. A lot of people don't know my first season. I had nothing but Bakersfield talent on there. And, when you start off things, you try to go to who do you know? And then who do you know that has a little bit of say-so? And then you start to go. And then, that evolved. And here I am today. We have Snoop Dogg powering the show and Bobby D presenting it.
It's amazing, man.
It's a blessing.
Yeah.
And, I do a lot of interviews in Bakersfield from at home because of the pandemic on Zoom.
Yeah, man. I've seen a bunch of the episodes having to do the Zoom. That's kind of the new reality everybody's in, is trying to figure out how to make these circumstances work.
Yes, but I will tell you, I've had my flaws with Zoom. They'll tell me, like, hey, you have 3 people, you can't go past 40 minutes. And then it's 2 people. And then I went past 40 minutes and it kicked me out. And so it made me look like I wasn't paying my cell phone bill. But there is no Zoom bill. Like, I had a free service, we was working it out. But that's just the whole process of learning and going through the punches and trying not to get beat up.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you from the beginning, time's the most finite thing we have on this earth. So I appreciate your time rocking with me, rocking with the viewers and the listeners. Thank you.
Yeah, man, my honor. I'm loving being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Speaking of time, what's the normal 24 hours for you, Jim?
Man, I got a crazy house. I got 3 teenagers and all online school right now. So big part of that is just making sure they're awake and getting logged into school.
And dressed.
Yeah, that's you. That's optional sometimes, man. They're just covered up sometimes. But yeah, so my day usually starts with trying to make sure they're up and at it and getting logged into their classes. But for the rest of the time, most of it revolves around working on music and talking with people. I mean, it's a huge variety. As far as my role as a creative, obviously I deal with a lot of people, but also being a pastor. So a lot of it's just having conversations with people and trying to help them figure out how to navigate life.
How much of your day do you feel like is preparing for the day versus how much of the day is in real time executing, just going with everything?
Yeah, well, I think you know, whatever normal used to be is all gone, you know, because a lot of my day I was pretty driven, so I'd get all kinds of stuff done. But these days it feels like a lot more of my day is just trying to figure out how to do stuff and what's next steps, and you know, especially coming off of this show and all the momentum and opportunities that I had coming off of that. So now a lot of it's just trying to navigate that, which is all preparation, you know, more than anything.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think, you know, I don't know, man. I think most of it's just trying to keep a good attitude when there's a lot of confusion and uncertainty. You know, keeping your spirits up and keeping your heart right, and trying to keep your eyes fixed on whatever it is that you know is going to bring some more momentum to your life, bring some purpose to your life. Those are the things I'm trying to focus on. So, but yeah, a big part of my day is just sometimes just trying to stay sane too.
Oh yeah, it takes a lot to go through a day, especially when reality can be upside down.
Yeah, man.
But you know, we find ways to just breathe and, you know, do the right thing, and a lot of the right things happen back.
Yeah, I believe very much in the give and take of the universe. You know, what you put out there, you usually get back.
You know, speaking of what you put out there and what you get back, I want to make sure I highlight for me, you being a dedicated father and being a dedicated husband. It is not easy for one to live your goals, live your dream, your purpose, your passion, and still provide and still keep, you know, your home first.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I give you that.
Thank you, man. Yeah, you know what? For me, it's pretty simple. I don't know if I was just built this way or I don't know, but like for me, security's never been something I've been after, you know? So like for me, I find that I don't have a fear of failing at music or at work, or the only thing I ever have any ounce of like weight is I can't fail at a husband and I can't fail at a father. So for me, just keeping it real simple, you know, I think everything else kind of, they're my muse, they're my fuel, they're so anything else I do is I'm gonna be lacking in if I'm failing on that front, you know. So I try to keep that front and center, and you know, obviously it's not about perfecting anything. Nothing in life really is. It's just about being available and keep the main thing the main thing. And when you do that, I feel like everything else tends to not fall into place, but at least it gives you the fuel to keep moving and keep
it's
striving.
a marathon.
Yeah,
you know, it really is, and you have to be prepared for it as well. You can't keep short-term thoughts on a long-term relationship.
Yeah, man.
And you know, communication is something that you have to be able to fit in the most, because an effective minute or a mesmerized minute goes a long way than a meaningless hour.
Yeah.
And that sticks, because you could sit next to your son and they could play video games, and then as soon as you leave to go take a call, they'll hit you right back like, hey, we haven't done anything, Dad. And it's like, we were just playing this game. No, Dad, we haven't done anything.
Yep.
I got a 6-year-old, and so
yeah, man.
I get that pressure.
Yeah, I got a 16-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old son and a 12-year-old son, and you know, one of the coolest things is like is knowing what's going on in their life, and it's something I don't take for granted, because you know, I had a great relationship with my parents, but I didn't always have that ability to like have conversations with them, and you know, I don't even really know why. Maybe it was just difference in something, I don't know, but I know that's one of the biggest things that I love about with my kids is like, you know, I know teenagers are always going to be shady. That's just what they do. But for the most part, man, I know what they're processing, you know, and I know what they're trying to figure out, man, in this confusing life, especially, you know, my son, he plays sports, and all sports were canceled this year, and him trying to figure out what that, you know, what does that mean? Because to him, it's, you know, it's almost like the end of the world, you know, like, it's like, what do you mean I can't play sports? And so, same thing, you know, my daughter's she's in her sophomore year, and she's just smart as all get out, but you know, there's only so much when you're just looking at the same four walls every day that, you know, it's pretty hard to stay motivated, especially as a teenager. So, you know, being able to know what they're processing, what they're going through, and them I don't have to pry. Like, they just come in and start talking, and I just like every time it's almost like I'm trying to be cool, you know, and deep down I'm like, oh, I'm so happy you're talking to me. You know?
No, that's for real. Because, you know, at age 10, they say is when you lose your child.
Yeah.
You know, they can go left or they can go right and keep on going right. But it also takes the investment into the child so that they know what right looks like. They know, hey, when something's not right, I need to go talk to mom and dad. Otherwise, they'll start looking for other answers in other places.
Yeah, and you know, and they're just dumb enough to not know exactly how to do that on their own, you know. And so, you know, me and my wife, one of the things that we've always kind of our mantra is we're not raising kids, we're raising adults, you know. So like we want them to be able to process and problem solve and like be in touch with their emotions and understand how to verbalize that. So like, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, jury's still out, they could still, you know, spin out and become crazy people, but for the most part, man, I feel like that idea of like, you know, I'm not here to just protect their innocence. I'm also teaching them how to process coming out of that innocence, and what does that look like as them as individuals too, you know? Like, who are you? You don't have to be who me or your mom wants you to be, or don't get me wrong, we got hopes and dreams for them too, but in the end, man, it's a short period of time that we got them under our care, so
yes,
I want to make sure they know how to navigate life, man.
Come on. And the best thing is allowing them to be true to themselves, but also with influences, you know, using their strong points as a recipe for success.
Yeah.
You know, don't try and make something that's really challenging for someone their strong point. Keep what they're good at, make them great. And then they'll start filling in the gaps.
Yeah, for sure.
I got a quote. Let me know how this quote relates to you, or if it doesn't. The idea is I want you to talk about it.
All right.
You ready?
I'm in.
Happiness isn't getting what you want. It's wanting what you got. Garth Brooks.
The great poet.
Yes.
Man, it is, hopes and dreams are beautiful, right? They really are. Like, having those moments of shooting for the stars and hoping for something special to come about. But the true gift, as simple and as cliche as it can sound, the true gift is existence, like being alive. And I think so often people associate the gift as happiness in life, but that's taking the yin without the yang, you know. Like, you gotta be in the moment and understand that, like, if you're having a hard time in life, the only reason you're experiencing it is because you exist, and the alternative is not existing, you know. And I think you know, that quote hits because it's true. Like, if you're always chasing happiness, you're never gonna find it, right? Like, you got to be able to be in it, and
Nice.
and if you can't find it in the small things, I don't care how big they are. I don't care how big they are, man. There's still gonna be a void. There's still gonna be an emptiness. And for some people, you know, I think sometimes they take that as a fuel, and you know, but man, I just don't want to get to the end of life always feeling like I didn't quite get something, you know, because that's just, it's precious, man. It's precious. So find it in the small things, find it in the now. And I know there's been times where I mean, this isn't like a, you know, something you're shooting for perfection or having it all the time, you know. More than anything, it's probably like a batting average, you know. You get 3 out of 10, you're an all-star, you know. So it's like that's you trying to find those moments though where you just, that's like like your North Star, you know. It's like that thing that always brings you back to center. It's like, now you better find happiness now, and if you don't have it, stop looking for it down in the future, because as we know, man, like, the future is a facade, man. We're not guaranteed anything.
Come on.
So have the dreams, work hard for them, all that stuff, but also understanding that pass or fail is not the
end of the world.
End of it. Yeah, man. It's attempt, and you know, and you find beauty in attempting. when you're not worried about the future. You're in it. You're in this moment.
A lot of the times people don't realize they're playing in the game they want to be in, and then sometimes the work hits them in the face what they have to do, and then it scares them. People become afraid of success.
Oh yeah.
And
I've definitely fallen victim to that, because a big part of, even with music, I've had opportunities in the past, but I wound up letting them slip, not because I didn't do it well enough. It's because I would just stop, I'd just change direction, or put my focus in somewhere else. And I luckily these days, I'm past the point of living with too much regret, but I've definitely experienced that idea of like, maybe I got scared of some success, or I got scared of failing, or whatever it may be. And it can paralyze you, man. It can paralyze you for sure. I'll use going to be kind of countering what I just said a minute ago. I'll use happiness in the moment as a cop out for moving forward. Because I'll be, I'm happy right now, I'm happy here.
That's a ceiling of complexity.
Yeah. So there's again, I believe that everything is both a blessing and a curse, and it's not about avoiding either one. It's just about trying to walk that balance of But again, I think that does get back to like a level of like loving the moment, not just using it though as a cop out. But I don't even remember where I was going with that. I just ramble sometimes.
No, but something that's really speaks out about this quote to me is that the way how our God works is that, hey, you may not want this, but I'm going to put it right back in front of you. And then you're going to have to make a decision. Yeah. There was a point where I quit working a full-time job, and I was really successful, and they weren't paying me well. That was one part of it, but I was so comfortable. I was really helping people. I was giving back to the community and feeding people, and then giving people jobs that normally, they wouldn't know how to fill out an application. And so I had this whole platform that I was like, oh yeah, I'm the man in my mind, not realizing that wasn't what was my plan. That wasn't what was set up for me. And then, God will make you so uncomfortable where you have to make a decision on, is this right, or am I feeling like this for a reason? And then he'll continue to make you uncomfortable. Yep. And then he tried to put it in my mind to stay away from music. And then he was like, no, you're wrong. And he had me in places I would have never been unless he put his hand on my life. And from there, I feel like from my situation to yours, as much as you may have made that right turn, that left turn, and as soon as he came to cross that finish line, you hit a U-turn. And God said, hey, you're closer to the finish line than you understood you were the first time, the second time, the third time, the 10th time. So by the time you're ready to cross the finish line, so much was ready for you. Yeah, man, and progression is not this straight line, right? Like, progression is these roller coaster.
It is, man. And I think if you can avoid from keeping an all or nothing mentality, you can truly, like,
you can progress.
That's what progress is, and I think, part of what I see a lot is there's a reality that we get so accustomed to instant gratification because everything's so fast these days that if things aren't happening right now, then somehow we got to do more, or we got to whatever. But I think there's a reality that there's a wisdom in patience, right? Like that's really how things get done, is through patience, and not. It doesn't mean you're any less passionate about what it is. I mean, there's all kinds of ridiculous things that need to change, and being a pastor, I'm a part of all kinds of social injustices and things that are going on, and our community's hurting, man. Like there's a lot of hurt going on in our community right now, and I know it's easy to get impatient and really demand some stuff, but at what cost to your soul, because it really can just weigh you down because it feels like there's no end in sight. But God's always playing the long game, always, and instant gratification is solely a human phenomenon, right? Like it's that's not the divine in any way, shape, or form. The divine is always about the long game.
That's chasing the wrong happiness.
Yeah, and or even. It might not even be happiness as much as it might just be a sense of justice or a sense of whatever it may be. But I think I've been blessed to have some old timers around my life, like where they really speak and they've experienced it, from so many different angles. And I think that's a really important thing that we miss a lot in today's world is that sense of mentorship, like where it's like we get a lot of people who it's great intentions, where they're like people that are 30 trying to mentor a 15-year-old, which is great, but that 30-year-old ain't lived long enough to truly experience the depths of life and be able to it's almost like an experiment that you're starting to tell people what it turns out, but you're only halfway through the experiment, And so like if you get some of those old timers around, man, value grandparents. I know they're crazy. I do. Like old people tend to be a little crazy, right? But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there's an ounce of like a whole bunch of wisdom that is found in that. But again, get back to that, like there's a it's a long game. It's a long game. Everything is, man. And which is why it's even more important to be in the moment, Like, it's not about instant gratification. It's about, like, if you're only looking out there, you're missing out on the whole journey, There's a song I've been writing right now, and the whole concept of it is, like, it's not about where you're going. It's how do you get there? Did you love a lot? Did you leave your mark on this time that you've been given? It's like this, like, the journey is the gift, and God willing, we get to live long enough to see some real change and progression happen. But even if we don't, you plant seeds, man, and nothing's guaranteeing that you get the harvest. I think that's the thing that Jesus taught us is, I love that scene where he's talking about throwing out the seed, and some of it falls on fertile ground, some of it falls on rocky ground. But the point of that story wasn't which ground should I throw it in. The point of the story is just throw the seed, right? Just throw the seed. Let it, where it sticks, and where it doesn't, you don't take ownership of that. You just take ownership of making sure you keep throwing out the seed. Be the light, be the love.
And water it.
Yeah, that's it. But you might not even be the one who's watering it. It might be somebody else. It might be down the road. You might throw the seed on ground and keep moving on, and somebody else coming in behind and watering. It's like not taking ownership of anything other than you are the carrier of the virus, I guess. The love virus, man. You're the carrier of it. Your job is just let it go.
When we were growing up, there was a thing called Big Brother, and Big Brother was someone that was a OG or somebody that was in their 40s, 50s that used to come and really put time into the community, and they were assigned to people. It was a great structure. Nowadays, kids only know Big Brother as a show on CBS, right. Where they have a camera that watches you, and they'll be like, oh yeah, Big Brother's watching, and they're talking about your parents, or they're talking about the job. It's a whole different structure of what understanding where mentorship comes from. Like as a kid, I used to go to a Baptist church and go to Brotherhoods on Monday and learn everything that I could about the Bible that I wouldn't understand on a Sunday or Wednesday night. And that really helped my growth in understanding where I'm coming from and where I gotta go, and where I can help see the growth from my community, and where I can also see where it's falling at.
Yeah.
And then from there, all those different teachings, even though I didn't get to apply that knowledge then, it allowed me to apply the knowledge later. And that's the whole thing, is taking something that gives you today, and God will show you a way to apply it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You just
sometimes
have to be
you don't
open.
even know it was planted in you. It
just comes out.
Yeah, I believe that's the beauty of the Spirit alive in us, man, is it brings it back when it needs to be there. There's things that my parents planted in me that, like, I didn't think about till I was 20 years later, something like that. And all of a sudden it comes back at the right time,
That's right. Talking about music and ministry, did the game choose you, or did you choose the game?
Oh, man. Well, I can only speak from my experience, but I'm a third generation pastor, right? So, I think my grandparents are the one who changed the trajectory of our entire family back in the day. They were, I think my life could have been way different had they not changed their life.
The legacy.
Yeah, that's what we're always standing on the shoulders of the generations before, man. That's another way that you can stay humble, is realizing like you wouldn't even have what you have if it wasn't for the generations before, good or bad. Like, you're standing on them. But Yeah, so when I ran from it, man, I didn't want to have anything to do with church, man. It was, once you see behind the curtains too often, you can't unsee it, you know? So structured religion was actually always kind of tough for me when I got of age. And but I still couldn't run from the call no matter what I did, man. I could be driving pizzas, I could be, you know, a cook. I was doing construction, I worked in the oil fields, I did all kinds of jobs, yet wherever I went, I wound up being some semblance of a pastor. I was young too, man. I didn't have no wisdom, I didn't have no whatever, you know, but somehow or another, man, I wound up being the one who people come to, and, you know, and I'm talking about like old dudes, you know, like 45, 50-year-old dudes talking to a 20-year-old about their life, and I realized that I couldn't run from it, you know, so I had to figure out how to navigate my own complexities when it comes to religion, but yet at the same time, like, I could either be on the outside griping about it, or I could be on the inside doing something about it. And so, like, for me, it was like, no, I got to be on the inside. Like, this is too important, and I truly believe that, like, you know, I believe in the way. You know, I do believe in the way. I think the church is a lot of really flawed humans trying to figure out how to navigate existence. But in the end, I believe in the way, and so, you know, I think so. I think it's a little both, man. I do feel like I think it chose me, but then I had to respond. So I had to accept it, you know. I think that's about anything, is like, there's certain natural things, and especially when it comes to the music part of it, I just grew up in it, man. I was blessed with two parents that were amazing musicians and singers. You know, first couple of years of my life, we were living in a motorhome, traveling around while they did churches and festivals and all kinds of stuff. And so, like, my earliest memories are like music, you know, and yeah, I remember I had a buddy come over to our house, and I was probably, I don't know, 10, 11 years old. Come over and stayed the night, woke up the next day, and my dad was in there playing piano, and inevitably, you know, we were all singing together, and my buddy came out of my room, and he was just like, looking around like, what is happening? He was like, afterwards, he goes, do you guys always sing together? And I was like, yeah? Do you guys never sing together? And he was just like, no, man, this isn't normal. I was like, oh. So I was like 10 or 11 before I realized that not all families just sing together, you know? So yeah, it's just, that's definitely, it's a part of me, you know? But in the same way, you know, I tell people all the time, I'm not a musician who happens to be a pastor. I'm a pastor who happens to be a musician. And whatever I do, whatever my job, whatever my role, loving on people and trying to provide a little bit of perspective and hope is always what I'm going to do. But music's that thing that, I mean, it impacts people in ways that words will never do, you know? And so I feel like I neglected music for a while. Not in a bad way. I feel like I had some different things that God was kind of calling me to, and the role at the church and just my family. I was coaching and all kinds of stuff, man. And I felt like that season of life was meant to just be about that. But man, yeah, this whole experience with the voice and stuff, it really awakened something that was kind of dormant in me in a while. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's great. And creativity pouring out of
I feel like the voice was, you know, your confirmation that you had to ignite the fire that was already burning. It was on the back burner, and it'll come out, and it'll have little spits of nice blue fire, but it'll come back down. And, you know, I feel that, you know, from that confirmation, it continued on to what we have today. Yeah. But, you know, there was all these different spurts of where, you know, you were getting it out there, a little backfire here, and then progress there. You know, I've read that singing showcases that you got into is because you wanted to show your children that, hey, the dream's real. The dream is alive. I'm going to show you guys. You know, what would you consider your first confirmation that that is what you're supposed to do, that is where you're supposed to go? Because you got eliminated on American Idol, and you could have stopped.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So I mean, funny story about that is it's really, that whole thing was funny, man. I was younger too. You know, I was old for the show, but I was like 28, and that was actually the cutoff. The maximum age cutoff was 28, right?
Hold on, you think talent stops at 28?
It does for American Idol, yeah. And so,
I'm with a pastor, and I'm trying not to cuss, but y'all got that shit fucked up.
It is, dude, but it's funny because I'm not kidding you. I was the oldest person there by a lot. Like
in the 20s.
28, dude, and I felt like it was funny, dude. I got there and it was just a bunch of like teenagers running around with their parents, and I was like, what am I doing here? But yeah, it was funny. I went down with my brother. He talked me into doing it with him, and man, it was funny because like you kept going through these stages to get, there's like 4 or 5 stages that you go through before you actually get on the TV spot, and so like I kept telling my wife like, man, this thing just keeps going, but like it's not really what I want to do, like I'm not really like an American Idol type of like person, The voice fit me way better than American Idol, man. I'm not a shiny dude. And so yeah, and it was funny, we get to the Hollywood week, we get up there, sing my tail off. We took a lunch break and we go back, and the main dude, his name Joe, I can't remember his last name, but he was like the 19th management like guru guy, right? He walks by a room full of people, stops, and he's like, dude, you're freaking awesome, man. I can't wait to see what happens. It's like, cool. And then we go from lunch break, go out there, and they do the elimination, and I was eliminated. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess this wasn't meant to be. Like, so that was a funny experience, whereas like I wasn't heartbroken at all. It was weird. It was like, well, I mean, I know I just went up there and nailed it. I mean, like, like when you get up and do something and you nail it, it's like, yeah, that felt good. Room stood up, it's all the contestants, and they're just, on their feet, and then I get eliminated. I was like, all right, well, this definitely wasn't meant to be. But that also prepared me years later, again, even getting into The Voice. The Voice was funny, man. I got on there, we loved watching the show. I got on their website to see when the next season started, and it had this little tab you could click on to like send in a YouTube video. It said, can't make an audition city, send in a YouTube video. So I literally like name, email, and a YouTube link. That was it. Sent it in, didn't think anything about it. A month later I get an email like, congratulations, we would love to invite you. And I looked at my wife and I was like, I think I just got invited to go like to the casting call for The Voice. And sure enough, so that was in January. So we go down there. That goes really, really well. And then the pandemic hit at March, and so we didn't think anything was going to happen with it. And so, but it felt different. And so going into this, I think it helped me prepare for it, because of the fact that like that experience with American Idol showed me this isn't a singing competition; it's a TV show. And like, and I don't even really mean that in like a negative way. It just is what it is. Like, it's first and foremost a TV show. And so, like, this isn't just like a true talent competition, right? So there's nothing to be.
It's not the Apollo.
You're not. No, it's not. It's not. You're not entitled to anything. It's like they have final say on everything that happens there. And so going into that, I kind of had this healthy sense of cynicism, yet hopeful, and so that allowed me to really just be in the moment, and going back to like what we talked about with my kids, like, the biggest thing for me is not about necessarily achieving specific dreams, but it's just constantly going after it. Again, getting back to that thing, it's not about pass or fail, it's about attempt. And that doesn't have an age limit, No. Attempting never has an age limit. And if you're not worried about passing or failing, then you get to experience some really cool stuff, man. And I've had these moments leading up, the first time I did the national anthem at the Lakers game was just like, it was so big, and like I just felt my heart racing, and you got just standing there and just, I don't know, man, it's crazy, and all these beautiful things tend to happen when you just keep attempting, and then like I said, most of it's gonna fail, that's the reality of it, but occasionally it pops through, and it's just like I never would have experienced that had I not kept attempting.
That's right.
Yeah.
To go from singing the national anthem at the Lakers, Staples Center for a game, to now you're going to be doing the Bakersfield Condors, and there's going to be no one in attendance. So how do you think your nerves are going to settle then?
Well, actually, I don't know if I'm giving away some production secrets, but we already recorded that last night. So everything's pre-recorded these days, you know? So there's nowhere to, like, I'm not going out on the ice and staying because they can only have so many people there anyways because of you can only have some people in the building.
So you can't even drop the puck?
I guess not, man. I guess they could, like, hover you over the top or something, stay away from everybody. I don't know.
They can't rapid test you and let you drop the puck?
I guess, man. But it's still, I think it's just, that's just the reality we're in right now. But
right.
But it was actually, the dudes were awesome to work with, and they're excited. And it's going to be aired on ABC, so it'll be like, you know, it's not just like in the arena too. It's now it'll be shown around Bakersfield and Kern County. So
you hear that, Condors? You hear that? Your game's gonna be televised.
Mm-hmm.
You took your passion to your purpose and exercised your gifts, turning your instrument of a voice to attracting wealth and inspiring the world with your sound. At some point, a law of attraction met your vision and a manifestation came out. You know, you had that moment where you were like, you took a failure and said, hey, I'm just going to have that same attitude, but keep on attempting, keep on trying. You know, can you just let a little bit of them know how much of that was manifestation and prayer that met hard work? Because a lot of people think that, hey, I'm patient, I'm waiting, but the world's going to come to me, versus you still got to be effective. You still got to progress. You still got to do things so that you can get closer to the goal.
Yeah. You know, I know there's a lot of different ways to approach it. And I can only go off of kind of what I've experienced and what I've come to believe, and I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's so many ways that I remember. My brain starts racing. Give me a second. I had this line that I wrote one time, that someday my hopes and dreams will be everybody's expectations of me. And I was young too, man, but I felt it, like having these moments of, I was living in Arkansas at the time, and I was playing quite a bit, and we were playing 3 or 4 times a week in different places, and I knew the energy that the crowd would give me. And it was a small crowd, you know, it could be anywhere from like 20 to like 200 people. But I knew the energy I was getting from them. I knew there was impact happening. Like I could, you know, you could just feel it. Like it was more than just being entertained. Like they were engaged. And that planted a seed that, like, you know, throughout the rest of the time, it was like, whether I'm doing it to 20 people or a couple million people, like it's keep that thing alive that is still about one, right? Like there's still, like, I want people to feel like it's just me and them. Mm-hmm. And that kind of started a thing in me, that like performance becomes that
personable moment.
Yeah, man. Like, don't get me wrong. I want to make fun, catchy music. I want people to tap their toes and like have fun with it. But I want them to walk away feeling like there was an impartation of something that happened. Like they got a piece of me that I was willing to give. And
I know you just gave a pre-production secret, but you just gave a secret to performing. The whole goal of performing is to, you know, really get in with the audience, where the audience is leaving away with not only the performance, but that energy that you left with them. You know, inspirational speakers, motivational speakers, they'll talk, and their job is to give them something to leave. Otherwise, it's just a person talking for hours.
Yep.
And it's what can you do to leave that memorable experience? You
know, it's one of the things I'm most proud about all of my stuff on the show is, like, I don't have a single regret about anything. Now, I'm always going to critique myself in ways that nobody else will, right? Like,
come on.
So watching back performances, you know, there's certain times where I'm just like, oh, come on, man, that wasn't the best. That wasn't, you know. But then you hear what people got from it, and it was in the moment, whether or not, you know, I was technically, you know, whatever. In the moment, I was in it, and I was trying to reach through that TV and like grab people, you know. And so there's these just the comments, man. It's like so much of it was like, yeah, I love your voice, but so much of it was like, holy, I could feel that. Like that's the thing, you know, that's that thing where it's like, everybody was, dude, that show was filled with monsters. I mean, just so many talented, unbelievable people. And so for me, I didn't make it about a singing competition, man. I just made it like, man, I gotta be me. And part of that is, you know, I do come from a spiritual background. And so just tying that in. So like, I don't remember what was that. I don't even remember what the question was. I just started rambling, brother.
No, we were talking about pretty much manifestation in real time, and you know the hard work you put in, and you know, and seeing it in real time, because nothing comes over sleep, nothing comes overnight but sleep.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Sleepless dream is what we want to live,
and that's definitely just to wrap that up. So like, you know, it's my pops has this saying. He says it all the time: "Is plan but be prepared." And it's this idea of like, do your work, plan, prepare, all that stuff, but be prepared to adjust and shift. And, you know, plans are like, and like from a spiritual standpoint, plans are like a prophecy, right? Prophecies are not a psychic reading. Prophecies it's usually a word. And what we tend to do is make a paragraph out of the word, but when the paragraph doesn't turn out, we throw the word out with it. So plan, you know, and as it goes, you got to be willing to adjust and don't be sold to your plan, you know. Be sold on the goal. Like that's really what it's about. And sometimes you got to adjust and so I do think you can. I believe very much so in manifestation and truly believing in something, but don't be sold to the details of the manifestation, you know? Be sold on the goal. What is it that
arriving at your destination.
Yeah, and again, getting back to the journey, getting to it, part of that, you're going to miss out on the beauty of the journey, which is there's creativity in adjusting, right? Like you got to use your creativity to adjust to whatever the moment is calling for. And you can't see the future, so you can't plan everything perfectly, but you can keep those the main thing. What am I after? And that's got to be what it's really about.
Come on, tunnel vision.
Yep.
You graduated from Ridgeview High School.
Whoop back.
You hear me? I mean, I'm a South High rebel, but, you know, I still got a lot of love for the South Side of Bakersfield.
Mm-hmm.
You became a pastor and influenced another Ridgeview graduate, multi-platinum, multiple Grammy-nominated singer Zakari.
My dude.
What can you tell the audience about the talent that's coming from Bakersfield?
Hey, man, Bakersfield has always been loaded with talent. I think one of the things that I love seeing right now, though, is that there's actually starting to be a culture that cultivates that talent. You know, so often, like when you see talented people for a long time, you didn't see it come to fruition until they bounced, and they had to go somewhere else to get developed because there wasn't a culture that really like received it and pulled it out of them and let them grow. And I love that there's this culture now that is starting to. I've really seen it like in the last decade where people are pulling for each other, you know, and there's a local pride that's kind of built back up of like, you know, let's love on our people, our creatives, and you know, I think we still lack, obviously right now the pandemic, but I still think even before the pandemic we lack in opportunities for people to grow and perform, and you know, I'd love to see more outlets and venues and stuff like that really is about that. But Bakersfield's saturated with talent, man, from every walks of life too. Like it's I mean, like that dude Zakari, man, he was just this little punk in the youth group, man, who was just, you know, trying to do music, and he was a sponge, man. Every time he'd be around, like he was a sponge, but he was fearless. So like he was soaking it in, man. Like whatever it may be, you know, I've been working with him on parts and stuff like this, and you know, like harmony parts and different things like that. And he had this lovely, cool tone, but it just was so unrefined. And to watch him develop and grow, and become more and more fearless. Like this dude would try anything. Like he anything, man. It was so funny, man. He cracked me up. And then I remember one time I was leaving, I was gone, and it was they were doing like this communion service, and there's this song that I wrote called "Remember Me," and so he called me up and he was like, "Hey, man, they wanted me to sing for communion, but like, is it cool if I do your song?" And I was like, "Yeah, do it, man." And he's like, "I'm kind of nervous, you know, because it's yours." And I was like, "No, man, do it however you want to do it." So I'm gone. So I wound up getting back and seeing the video. Dude, it was just like, it was so moving because I was just like, God dang, he took his own little spin on this. And, you know, now he's turned into the monster that he is, man. It's so cool to see. But there's a lot of those that are coming up, man. There's a lot of young talent that is coming up. And my hope is that the people around them just keep like, man, feed that, because not only is it obviously great for them, but the more we create that environment, the more it's going to start coming out of Bakersfield.
Yes,
you know, it's contagious. A creative community is contagious. And
I want to plant this bug right now. I don't know if the seed, actually I can't call it a bug, it's a seed. And you know, I want this seed to be as big as possible, but have you and Gregory Porter started talking about doing a record together?
Oh my God, no, we haven't, but that's one of my favorite dudes, man. Like, first time I heard "Take Me to the Alley," I was broken, man. That dude's voice is something else. You know, my buddy Brian Boozer, you know, he does a lot of stuff over there. And man, that is a texture and a voice that you don't hear too often, man. There is just something unbelievable about that man. So yeah, that opportunity comes up, I am way in, man.
Bakersfield needs it, brother.
Dude.
That will inspire so many others that where you just don't have to chase this dream of wanting to be a rap star or a R&B singer. Let your voice take over. Don't put a dot on your voice. Be a part of the whole wall. And find ways to excel.
Man, I even going back to like I think one of the biggest blessings I've had in my life is the exposure to all of it. Like, you know, I tend to do more of a country leaning Americana kind of soulful bluesy thing, but that all stems from like being around every kind of music, man. Like every kind of music, and not just like kind of around it, like being around creative people from every walks of life that isn't about just this or just that. You know, I truly believe that like the more you're exposed to people doing their craft and like doing it at a high level, whatever it may be, it creates a diversity in an artist that, you know, no artist is original, right? Like that's cute to think that, but no artist is original, right? Like we take bits and pieces of everybody that we grew up with, and then it creates something that sounds original but there's influences that are coming in so many different ways, right? And that's what creates this new
nucleus
thing
of just amazing.
Yeah, man. I like my mom used to like take all the leftovers and then Snoops, cover it in mashed potatoes and throw it in the oven. It's called shepherd's pie, right? And it was like and it could be different every week. It was like whatever they made that week, that's what goes into it, right? But it was one of our favorite meals. Every time she would make it, it was like, yeah, shepherd pie at night. Let's go.
Hold on. There's a point to the leftovers?
Oh, yeah.
Bro, we waste
Gotta
so
be
much
creative,
leftovers.
man. Gotta be creative. You know, when you.
I'm sorry, wife. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because she be on me. I'm like, you know what? She's going to watch this episode and be like, you better start doing something.
You got editing rights, man. You can cut it out.
Nah, I'm going to let it ride because it goes into my next part of what I'm about to talk about. I'm going to do just two more things and we'll wrap up. But, you know, you have 18 years plus marriage, and that's very aspiring to me. I'm 6 going on to my 7th year here in March. And, you know, as you know, a marriage is a blessing, but it's also a challenge. It's also a bunch of obstacles that you have to overcome, and you have to learn how to fight fair. You have to learn how to communicate. You have to learn how to leaps into areas that you've never been, whether it's parenting. You've never parented before. Like for me, my father passed away when I was 4, so there's a lot of things I don't know on how to do things because I got taught by multiple people on the streets and putting the influence on me. And so from there, you know, there's been all these different challenges I've had on my own with marriage and struggling to make things work. And like, you know, I have my own understanding and then be like, oh, there's this other way of thinking? No way. And then it's like, oh, okay, give me a chance to show you I know how to think like that because you just put it in my mind.
Yeah.
And then you have that growth. You know, what can you tell the audience and what advice can you give to people that are, you know, getting married or they're going through things during the pandemic so that, you know, one, they can excel in their relationship, and two, you know, a love and marriage is something that, you know, for better or for worse, for sickness or health, and, you know, to let those vows mean something, and you've been able to showcase that you have a whole adulthood of marriage.
Yeah, man. I've been married almost half my life, right? So we got married at 20 years old. And the stark reality of it is I truly don't even know outside of, I don't know, anybody my age that got married young that's still married. You know, all my friends that got married young, they're not married anymore. And again, that's not anything other than like, I'm just grateful, but like I know the reality of like how hard it is. Like, because here's what happens is we humans grow, right? We change. And what tends to happen in a long-term relationship is you're still holding on to the person they were when you got married. And as they change, as they grow, if you're not adapting and relearning to love whoever that person is in front of you now, not who they once were, you know, it's I don't know if that's something that you can get over because it's you're hanging on to something that's, you know, my dad said if you're riding a dead horse, dismount, right? Like you're hanging on to something that's dead, right? Like that person no longer really exists. Now it's a part of who they are, but that's not who they are.
Right.
And so like part of it is adapting and growing with it. And, you know, a big word that I feel like I use a lot, I talk a lot, is the idea of covenant. And a covenant relationship versus a consumer relationship is a consumer relationship is you adjust to me, to what I need. And if you don't, then I'm going to find somewhere else to get my needs met. And a covenant relationship says I adjust to you, period. Now, the hope is that both people and both parties are adjusting to each other, and that's how it makes it work. So that is the idea of a covenant, right? Is like we're in this to make this work, so therefore we're going to keep adjusting to each other, which stages we're in, and you know. But I there's this old timer. His name was Jerry Cook. He's just this lovely old pastor that yeah, just a great dude. He passed away some years ago, but one of the things he was telling me was, if you say you've just fallen out of love with your wife, then the reality of it is that you never really loved your wife. You were just loving yourself through her. Yeah, that hits, right? And what happens is when she starts becoming her own person, and she's no longer allowing you to love yourself through her, then you chalk it up to I no longer love her. And you know that for me, I was lucky enough to kind of get that in my psyche pretty early on in our marriage, and it's, you know, we've been married 18 years, and we always joke there's like 15 good ones. You know, like there's been some tough years, man, where you become business partners. You know, you lose the spark, the romance a lot of times, and you become business partners. And you do, but you also have to understand that there's a season. You know, there's seasons to everything. And certain seasons are just a grind. It just is what it is. And you can try all you want to put romance into it, but this season maybe just doesn't have it in it. And learning to accept that with it's not even a hope. It's just an understanding a new season will come. But if you don't have the patience to see that season out, then it's real easy to just get caught up in this is just what is, and that's never the case, man. Because again, if you put the big principles up in front, You know, I find for my life, faith and the way of Jesus is that constant, that if I can just keep my eyes fixed on that thing, that the truth, the life, the way, that tends to bleed out into everything, which creates compassion and patience, and in a relationship, that's really what it's about, man. A consumer is always going to see, how does it affect me? You know, we take on this narcissistic behavior that says, like, it's about how you affect my world, and
that's a take reality versus give and take.
Yeah, man.
It was this one person that told me you have to make more deposits than withdraw in a relationship.
Always.
Because if you just withdraw with no deposits, you're going to overdraft. And the moment you overdraft, you might as well start sleeping on the couch.
Yep. Yeah, buddy.
You know, you have done some amazing covers through your course. And I mean, you can put on anything and it gives that same flair as the original, but it also gives a splash of your originality into the records. You know, what has been your top 3 favorite songs that you have done a cover to?
Like ever, or just on the show?
I want to go ever.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to just stick to what we've seen.
Yeah.
I want to stick to what's in the heart and soul of what we get to know inside of you.
Well, man, that's tough. Done a lot in the years.
Instinct.
You know, because, well, I mean, I had the privilege of sharing a lot of years playing with a local band called Soulful, and we did a lot of really great fun covers, man. Like, you know, and like some really cool old school, like New Orleans funk, like Galactic, and like, you know, just some really cool stuff. But then putting some crazy twist on, you know, some modern day stuff. But I honestly, dude, the one I did on the show as the finale, with a little help from my friends, like, dude, that was the craziest, most fun I've ever had doing a cover song in my life. Like, there was not an ounce of thought. It was just being and performing, and like, it was almost out of body. Like, that was silly fun. You know, but I think I tend to, like, one of my favorite, I just posted a silly, like, I tend to get insomnia a lot, so then I just sit around and play songs, and I put up Garth Brooks' The Dance, which is one of those that just, like, I don't care what genre you're into, like, that song is going to tug at your heart, right? Yeah, so that, and then Joy by Stevie Wonder is just silly fun. Like, that's a song, like, if there's ever been a title that encaptures the feel of the song, it is that one, man. Like, it's like so much fun. And then Move On Up, Curtis Mayfield did that with a bunch with Soul Jar. Again, it's, for me, a cover song is like, I love putting my own thing on it for sure, but it's about, like, cover songs can be tough when you don't believe in it, you know? Like, you got to find a way to believe in it to really. I sing. That's what I do, right? Like, so, like, I can sing any song,
but it's
like,
paying the homage to the song.
Yeah, and even when I was on the show, like, you know, like, I definitely found ways to twist it up, and I didn't want to do some carbon copy thing, you know? I didn't want it to feel like karaoke. I wanted it to feel like I could cover that song, you know. But I think my favorite though is there's a couple songs by Chris Stapleton that tends to make me like, man, I want to make a record like that, like, you know. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
you know, as you're talking about what it make Chris Stapleton gives you the spirit to make more records and gives you that reference. You know, what's next? What can we expect from Jim Ranger? What can the world be looking forward to? Is there anything in the can that you're willing to, are you okay to release? Because, you know, certain things get wrapped up and I don't know how to untie certain things.
Yeah, man. Right now, it's truly, the reality of it is the music industry's all but at a standstill still. You know, there's no touring really going on. Labels aren't really looking for any new acts right now. There's a lot of conversations that are going to be happening in the spring and in the summertime. But you know, coming off the show. So for me, create. I'm writing a ton of stuff right now. I want to have all my ducks in a row for when the time is right to move things forward. We're going to be doing some, you know, there's some stuff coming up. We're going to be doing some teaming up with some community stuff that's coming up in the summertime, and putting on some like drive-in shows and different stuff like that, raise money for local stuff going on. So that'll all be coming up here pretty soon. But right now, honestly, man, I'm in this mind frame of just create. I got dozens of half-written songs, right? Because that tends to be, I'll figure out a hook, or I'll figure out, you know, a verse, and then I'll let it sit for ever and just never finish it. So
that means you need room. You have room to collab.
Yeah, well, a lot of times though, I only wrote when I was inspired, and you know, I part of what you have to do is sometimes you just have to like make yourself sit and do it. Like, it's work, right? So like, get some work done. But I always had this full-time stuff going on, so I would write late at night or whenever I was like inspired by a thought or something. But now I'm actually like putting it in my calendar, like I'm gonna be writing from this time to this time, and I'm gonna be like, and so that's a big part that's changed coming back from the show is like, I really want to put in the work, you know,
structure, program.
Yeah, so right now, just kind of at home demoing the songs and getting them ready for whatever this next stage is. So we're nothing definitive right now, but there's a lot of really cool conversations going on that I've never had before in my life, and not ready to talk about those just yet, but there's some cool conversations happening, man, that is kind of is mind blowing when you get a certain call from somebody and you're like, oh, hey,
how did you get my number?
what's up? Hey, yeah.
Go ahead.
I got a couple questions.
Yeah.
The first one is when you mentioned earlier about being your worst critic and stuff like that. What are some things that you can think of off the top of your head when you're watching it back? Like is it a wrong note, or is it maybe a breath control thing, or like what are some of those?
Yeah, so my rule of thumb is like, I feel like my tone is best when I sing 80%, right? So like, if I go 100%, like it's belting it, right? And so I find my comfort zone is in my head, whatever that means, is like 75, 80%, not energy wise, obviously, and on the performance aspect, but just in that tonal range of my voice. And so sometimes, man, it's tough. It's tough to keep your nerves like down when you're just like, the cameras are rolling, millions of people are going to be watching you, and so when I watch it back, I'm just like, God, it got me there, or it got me here, like I'll feel it. There's some times where it's funny. One of the people's favorite performances is when I sang on that Big Freaking Rock and sang Without You. And there's so many flaws in that performance for me when I listen back, But that's the one that tends to move people the most, So finding that balance between, that critiquing of yourself, because that's why I love a studio, right? I love capturing moments, and I love being able to do it 3 or 4 times and like really find what is that thing I want to project right here. But live performance, you can't take that same attitude, man. It's got to be really practiced, right? Like I can't even say how important that is, man. I feel like people put off practice. Because the thing that needs to happen when you're on a stage is it needs to be second nature. There needs to be no thought involved. It just needs to be second nature. And the only way that happens is repetition. And so, leading into something, you just practice so that whatever you leave out there, it's not because you overthought it or whatever it may be. It's just, and so, but yeah, that critiquing, man, I think every artist is kind of built that way, man. Like, I don't really like watching my performances back, man. I love just putting it out there and letting people do whatever they want to do with it. But if I watch it too, I'll watch it, you know, like I'd get done and then they'd release the video and then I'd watch it back. But for the most part, I let it lie after that. I'll even repost it without watching it, you know, like just like repost and then like not even, because I know me. I think that's the beauty of art. I can't remember who says it, but like, you know, the point of art is you do it, you let it go, and you're just putting it in the universe, and people do what they want with it, you know. So even when people critique it, like, that don't bother me at all. Like, I don't know. Again, you know, you get to a certain age too, you don't give a damn anymore. Like, it's like, whatever. Like, as far as people's opinions and stuff. But yeah,
It's just criticism.
Yeah, it is, man. And people expect, man, especially when you're on TV and you get, you know, just all these, like, people just saying this, oh my God, dude, the silliest stuff. And you're just like, man.
They just want a reaction.
Thank you for your opinion on Twitter. But yeah, so anyway, but I can't do a short answer. Short answer is yes. It does tend to be breath control when you're amped up, right? And so I'll find myself dropping off certain notes or, you know, something like that. That tends to be. But as far as the performance goes, I was really proud of all the performances as a whole. It's more about that finite. Like I get annoyingly in my head when it comes to like holding notes and hitting like really over the top.
We can't be perfect people, but we can have perfect actions.
Yeah.
And we can build that up where it becomes slow for us. You know, the greatest part of success is when things slow down for you.
Yeah.
And it's still fast to everybody else, but it's
man.
slowed down. And you can be like, oh yeah, I know this sound's gonna. No one else can hear this sound coming out, but I can, and that's my cue.
Yeah, man. Again, sit on that big old freaking rock, dude. You're like 12 feet in the air on top of that stage, and you're looking down, and all these famous people staring at you, and you know, and it was like, at that moment, it was beautiful though, man. I just took a deep breath, kind of like, you know, in my own kind of way of just kind of tuning into the spirit, just being in the moment, and just like. Deep breath, and then the music started, and it was like, let's go.
That's right.
Now,
yeah.
But kind of to piggyback off that, I think I hear like a Christina Aguilera say this, and you know, a lot of people talk about Billie Holiday's "Strange Fruit" and how like sometimes those like imperfections make the songs what they are.
Yeah.
So you know, it's something to think about.
Yeah, it's funny because some of the moments that I would be critiquing the most in my head, all of a sudden somebody's like, oh, that moment where you did this, that was awesome. I was like, you mean my voice cracked? What are you talking about? Right? It's like, yeah. But you know what? Some of my favorite artists, Otis Redding, is a prime example of somebody who just, I think that's kind of when you get back to like the idea of soul and music it's that thing that pours out of you, and sometimes it does create these little wavy things that happens in your voice, or maybe a slightly off time, or maybe the note wasn't quite there, but they felt it, right? Mm-hmm. And that, getting back to that performance, is the reason I was so proud of the performances, because I felt every moment of it, and like I was in it. So it wasn't about being flawless. When I did the original song, that was the hardest performance of all of them. That slow song that, you know, it doesn't build anywhere, and I can't really just like, you know, unleash into it. And you have to really be precise. That was by far the most stressful performance I had of the whole thing, because it was really trying to find that pocket and stay into that thing, and nobody had ever heard the song before, so it's like, you know. But yeah, I think in the end, man, like some of my favorite performers, ironically, are not the flawless singers. They're the ones who go back to even like what we were talking about with Garth Brooks, and Elvis Presley, like. You can go through some of the biggest artists that has ever walked this earth, and they were not known for being flawless. You know, they were, you know, besides the Queen, you know, Aretha, she's always flawless. But like, but these certain artists that just really move the masses, they weren't flawless. You know,
in music, especially in music, breaking the rules is where progress lies.
Yeah.
You know, if it wasn't for the Beatles knocking down that guitar speaker, we wouldn't have a bass line in hip hop today.
Yeah.
And that created that, I don't like that. It's just going into my ear. It's really loud. And it's like, we love that.
Wait, I feel something.
That made me move.
Yeah.
And those things is where really the progress lies. And you being able to fuse your own sound, a fusion of all these different flavors and ingredients, and be able to project it into the world, and then we receive it. I feel like when you're on American Idol, we weren't ready for that. Nobody was ready for that.
No.
Versus
And
right
you know
now,
bring it. That's it. That's all let's do, man.
One more question. I was just wondering what your songwriting process is. Like, is it melody first, lyrics?
Lyrics tend to come first for me. You know, I think a lot to a flaw. I love the mysteries of the universe. I love diving into, you know, existentialism. Like, I don't know. I didn't hardly talk about anything for like first 25 years of my life because I live in a loud family. So like, you know, I just didn't tend to talk a whole lot. I remember one of my best buds, Josh, one day he asked me something. This was after I kind of like came to this awakening of like all kinds of things. And I just started talking. He goes, Jimbo, I have never heard you say this many words in your life, you know? And so, but it was just all bent up. So for songwriting, for me, it definitely tends to be lyrics first because I'm pondering a thought. And then I start to find a way to express those lyrics through the melody that makes it make sense. At the same time, there's plenty of times where, you know, I'm a musician as well, so there's plenty of times where I'm just sitting there picking or playing on the piano and a melody's coming through, and then I start to like, what does this make me feel like? And then I start to write from there. So, you know, but yeah, I think the majority of my stuff comes from lyrics first, but, you know, as with anything, creativity comes when it comes, and so, like, you know, yeah, melodies are they tend to be harder for me a little bit, to be honest, you know. Lyrics tend to flow pretty easily. Melodies, for some reason, I tend to get stuck in certain patterns of, I'll write a song, I'll get done, and be like, wait, I already wrote this song 3 times. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, you know, start coming up with clever ways. The older I've gotten, the more experience I've gotten in music, it definitely has freed that up a lot more. But yeah, I think lyrics first primarily, but sometimes, you know, it goes different ways. But
what's the overall experience that you taken with you from your celebrity peers that's sticking to you after the show that you just keep in your head, that maybe one of the, you know, the judges have said to you, just like, you know what, I'm taking this with me, and I'm constantly reminded of it now that the show, you've done everything on there, what's still resonating with you now with it?
I think there was like a solidification that happens that I'm enough, right? Like, as simple as that sounds, but like, I don't need to try to be something else, right? Like, there's something about that like, when you get around those people, right? Like, they are so comfortable in their skin, it's crazy, right? Like, Blake Shelton, John Legend, I had lots of conversations with those two, and both of them, they are so unbelievably comfortable in their own skin, like, and there's something about that and it's not arrogance, it's really not, it's just like, there's an affirmation that comes when you being yourself gets praised, and it's not something you're after, don't get me wrong at all, that shouldn't ever be a goal. But there is something real that happened when I was myself 100%. I didn't give them anything to put on camera that I didn't want them to have. Right? Like, I really, like, I was myself, and if I didn't want to talk about something, I just, like, I don't want to talk about that. Cool. And then move on. Like, so that was one of the biggest things is, like, I felt like people got a glimpse of me, like a real glimpse of me on the show. And again, I got makeup on, and I got, you know, the whole glam team, the whole thing, right? But what came through, I don't have any regrets about, because it was truly me. But then what happens is, is you do get people like, you know, by far, I think the most encouraging like person that was on that whole thing was John Legend, because he was all about every performance I did, man. Like I watched him mostly because he would just be so in it and standing and moving and swaying, like he was just in it. That energy feeding off of like, you know, like people. It's intimidating, man, being in front of somebody like them who so accomplished and like
they've acknowledged who they are.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think a lot of the time where we're in our shadows of what we're doing and we know what we're doing, but we still feel like we're trying to do it, versus you have people that look at us like you're doing it.
Yeah.
And then that moment of where you acknowledge it and then how you move after that is definitely something that, you know, you can see rub off from the people that you're around.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for me, part of my artistry has nothing to do with what I look like, right? So like, and I'm not saying that for, there's lots of people who I think that's a part of their artistry, and it should be. Like it's a part of who they are, but for me, that was never really the thing. So for me, it was like, oh, y'all want to put me in a 3-piece suit? All right, let's do this. I couldn't care less. I know what I don't like. There's plenty of things I was like, no, I'm not wearing that. But like for the most part, like it was getting back to that, like, what did I take away from it was this sense of like, you be you, and trust that, you know, if you get the moment, if you get the spotlight, you being you is exactly what you need to be, and you need to be the best you. Like, you know, like I'm not talking about just nonchalant. Like, no. Be you. Be the one that's practiced, that's prepared, that's got all their ducks in a row, who's put in the time, has had the experience. You're not entitled to anything, but be prepared when it comes along, and then trust that you still be you. I don't care what they put me in. I'm still gonna be me, right? And so, yeah. So that carries, man. I had that a little bit going into it, but it gets solidified, man, when you have that pressure and that, like, those eyes on you, and then you get that praise and that approval. Like, you know, it wasn't anything I was after, but man, it felt good to have, and it just solidifies things where it's like, yeah, man, just be you. Just be you.
That's right. Be true to yourself.
Yeah.
If you notice, brother, my show's different. It's unique. They got segments over there, but we don't do segments like them. And it's like, how do we keep that same energy and close out? The viewers knows it's coming. I'm going to hit you with it. You got any questions for me?
Dude, yeah, I guess. I always have questions. You know, it's like I'm getting a lot from like your questions of like, I feel like I'm getting to know you a little bit through the questions that you ask, right? Like what makes you curious and stuff like that. And I think for me is like, what is that thing that constantly makes you curious? Like, was there something that happened, or something like, is it just will you always have that curiosity, that sense of like, does that make sense?
Yeah, no. When I was a kid, when I was born into a wealthy family. You know, my family back east, they started state banks. They took a bunch of wood, or my great grandfather was an attorney and a judge, and learned that if I help out the Native Americans, they'll tell me which trees to cut down. And they were in a place in Michigan where it was the number one furniture manufacturer, and Chicago burned down, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah.
And then the fire of Chicago burned down. That made my family really wealthy, because they knew what trees to cut down to rebuild the city and sell furniture. And so we came from that. My dad made a decision to leave the nest, and like his father was working at the Pentagon and Department of Defense, and decided to leave that to come to California, married a Mexican woman, and you know, things have changed in my life. And so my father died when I was 4, and I just was always curious of like, hey, I know this exists, I know I come from this, but I'm also received and loved and raised by the streets. I'm raised by the people that they wouldn't think I'd be around. And it's been all love, passion, and genuineness that where I'm able to go in places people really don't think you're supposed to be at. And I don't think about it like that. I'm aware. I know what monsters are existing, but you have to learn to receive those and give people love and respect first, and then you can grow from that whole excursion. And the whole curiosity is, okay, if I'm doing this, who else is like this? Oh, I'm one of the few people that's like this. Okay, where can we relate at? Where can we have tangible relationships of communication or experiences so that we can keep on building? Because I don't want to be the only person feeling like I'm like this. And it evolved to where I got stories on stories on stories, and it's like, wow, God is giving me blueprints and different recipes to success that where they're like, hey, this is where I should have put butter instead of margarine. Hey, this is where I should have put salt instead of sugar. Because, you know, sometimes life isn't sweet. It's also a little salty, a little dry. It's something you're not going to expect it to. And, you know, you have to be ready for that. And having a sense of curiosity of how everything goes and you have to learn how to ask questions. and it led me on my path.
Yeah. Why do you tick the way you tick is one of my favorite questions to ask. Is like, there's I feel like a curiosity in who somebody is creates opportunity for compassion, for love, for, you know, seeing it from their eyes, seeing it from who they are. And I love that, man. That's why I like.
There was this one moment. We dropped off our cousin at work. He worked at Dryers. We're driving. We see a Bentley driving down. You know, it's Bakersfield. This is like 2008, 2007. And I'm like, what the hell? Bentley in Bakersfield? We need to ask him what he does for a living. Like, boom, my brother's on it. He's driving, swerves over. The guy's scared. Because, you know, we're young, we're big. And he's like, man, what are they doing? And it's like, no. Like, we just want to know, what do you do for a living? We want to know, how do you get to what you got? And he said something that fucked all of our heads up. He said, you guys got more than me. And then he said he was a pastor. And he told us that we have more than him. And he was saying that it was just our energy, our abundance, that we had more in store for us than he had today. And we walked away like, what the hell is he talking about?
Sure.
He's driving this. We're in a 1988 Cutlass. And, you know, sometimes we got to push this thing to get the clutch working. You know, it's a journey. And it's still, to this day, it still hits me. And that's 13 years ago. And him rubbing that off of like, you know what, I think he was right. He didn't know us, but he was right. And that influence of what else does the world have for me, and you can't ever judge into what people have. You have to judge into what people are, and then you'll go further.
Love it. Yeah, buddy.
I need to close out.
Yep.
You know, my wife, I love you. I know my son's haircut appointment was at 12 o'clock, and I couldn't stop this from going because this was phenomenal. But yeah, we got to keep that, by the way, guys. I'm going to close out. It's Contrast Uncut. It's season 4. It's my spotlight episode, the voice edition. You know, I want to give a big shout out to Uncle Snoop's Army and Bobby D Presents. I appreciate you, brothers. I wouldn't be able to do incredibly stuff like, you know, interview Jim Ranger, talk about his history. You know, this brother let them diamonds fly. He let so many gems go that you know, he may owe some of you guys some real nurturement after this, because the blindness of them diamonds may have got you dancing, got you in the spirit. Go play this brother music. That's what you need to do after that, because it'll make full circle. Jim Ranger, thank you, brother, so much for coming on.
It's a blessing, man.
And have a blessed day.
Hey, you too. What's up, everybody? Jim Ranger here, and I'm on Contrast Uncut. And I just want to shout out to Bobby D and Snoop Dogg, and it's an honor to be a part of this whole experience.
Yeah, this really reminds me of some, this really reminds me of some Tribe Called Quest. Hip hop really taught me to give it all I got left. Wu-Tang taught us how to beat the projects and tell my story over beats and it could be a project. Look, how it all begun, bum, skibbity bum, yeah. Grew up on that Nas, on that L, on that pun. Old soul when I was young, crisscross, make them jump. Battle rapping for respect, my nigga, this ain't what you want. Can I kick it when I'm rhyming? Be a legend through Ebonics, was a sticker boy. Felt like sticky fingers, play that Onyx. Can I live track 8? Feel like Jigga 96, without a reasonable doubt, the album turned me into this. Shit, we always had dreams of being money making Mitch. Without jewelry on, hit a jail pose, take a flick, feel like Pac and keep your head up.